All the misfortunes in life, in truth, have no cause outside ourselves. They all arise from the mind. When the heart is filled only with complaints, we get pulled into misery. When we see only negativity, obstacles appear one after another. Complaining is like a poison. The more we repeat it, the deeper it seeps in, until our entire life is stained gray. But the opposite is also true. If we know how to adjust the heart, we can transform the entire field of energy around us. When we plant optimism in our thoughts, when we nurture faith and a smile, then even in darkness, we still attract rays of light. A positive heart is like a lamp. It may not banish the night, but it is enough to light the path beneath your feet. And that, in the end, is the essence of life, the heart. You may have a stable job, a home, a complete family, the achievements others dream of. Yet if your heart is restless, full of anxiety, comparison, and complaints, then all of it is just an empty shell. The greatest tragedy is not that you haven't achieved success, but that you already have everything, and still feel hollow inside. That is the deepest pain, when we don't just want more, but long for a meaningful life, for value to leave behind, and for peace within our own soul. After nearly 90 years of life, Inamori Kazuo left us with his final book. Not a formula for wealth, not a strategy for business, but all distilled into a single word: heart. Because if the heart is unsettled, no matter what you possess, you will still feel empty. But if the heart is clear, then even in the storm, you can still find peace. And that is why you are here, with me, at Juliana Gray, a channel that shares books filled with wisdom and depth, where every page is not just summarized, but turned into a mirror, helping us rediscover balance, tranquility, and inspiration for life. Here I will walk with you, to listen, to reflect, and to distill the essence of books into lessons we can weave into our own lives, in ways that are gentle yet enduring. Every success begins with a selfless heart, and the life of Inamori Kazuo is perhaps the clearest proof of this truth. Born into a poor family, he started life with nothing. At the age of 27, he founded Kyocera. Then at 52, he established the telecommunications giant KDDI. Both companies grew to become global enterprises, listed among the Fortune 500. At 78, when most would have long retired, he accepted the challenge of rescuing Japan Airlines, a company on the brink of collapse. Within just 1 year, he revived an organization of tens of thousands, leading them from despair back to hope. At first glance, one might assume his success came from clever strategies or vast resources. But the truth is far simpler. It all began with one unwavering belief. Every success starts from a selfless heart. When you put the benefit of others before your own, you ultimately gain far more than you expect. So what does a selfless heart mean? It means placing others' interests above your own. It means acting from goodwill and sincerity. For Inamori, every decision began with a single question: will this truly be good for others? He believed that actions born of selflessness would always lead to good outcomes, not just for others, but for oneself as well. Consider his decision to rebuild Japan Airlines. At first, he declined multiple times, citing his age and lack of knowledge in the aviation industry. But then he thought of three things: for the stability of Japan's society and economy, for the livelihoods of more than 32,000 employees, who would lose their jobs if the airline collapsed, for the everyday people, because if only one major airline remained, prices would rise, quality would fall, and ordinary citizens would suffer. He accepted the immense pressure, not for fame, but for a selfless reason: to help people, to serve society. And because of that heart, he had the courage to withstand doubt, the strength to take bold action, and the resolve to turn the impossible into reality. A selfless heart can redirect a destiny that once seemed sealed. We have all heard the word selflessness, yet in a world of constant competition and pressure, to truly live with a selfless heart is not easy. It asks you to set aside your ego, to place the greater good before yourself, and to believe that giving does not diminish you. In fact, it is the very path to meaning and peace. Selflessness may appear to be giving way to others, but in truth, it is building a bridge for yourself. You give, and at the same time, you receive the warmth and quiet assurance that you are living a life that truly matters. Selflessness is not just a virtue. It is the key that unlocks a life of wholeness. True failure doesn't happen when you fall. It happens when you choose not to rise again. What causes many people to miss out on a great life is not that they lack talent or ability, but that they stop too soon. True failure is not in the fall, but in refusing to stand back up. Inamori Kazuo once said, "Between those who succeed and those who fail, the difference is small. When faced with challenges, do you choose to keep walking or to give up?" That wasn't just empty philosophy. It was carved from his own life and death experiences. In Kyocera's early years, the young company received a massive order from IBM, with one condition. The product had to be 10 times higher in quality than anything they could currently produce. For a small, under-equipped company, it was nearly impossible. They lacked the machinery, the technology, the manpower. No one would have blamed them for giving up. But Inamori refused to retreat. He believed, if we can overcome this challenge, we will raise our capabilities and step onto the world stage. So he and his workers moved into the factory itself. Days were spent directing production. Nights were given to relentless research. No sleep, no rest. For 7 months straight, they endured at a level that seemed beyond human. And then, the impossible became reality. Kyocera's products met IBM's standard, opening the door for the company to expand globally. The moment you feel like giving up is often the very moment life is testing whether you are truly worthy. That experience became Inamori's lifelong conviction. If you pour in your whole heart and never quit, the path will eventually open. And that is the lesson for us today. In modern life, each of us carries so much: work, family, responsibility. There will be times you are exhausted, when you want to let go, to drift away. But remember, no challenge comes to block you. It comes to forge you, to bring you closer to a meaningful life. Because in the end, the true measure of life is not how many times you've succeeded, but whether you have the courage to rise each time you fall. And when you dare to keep walking, even when your heart feels heavy, you'll find that you're not only saving a project or a job, you're saving your own belief in yourself. And that belief, once held firm, will lead you to a life of wholeness, where one day you can look back and smile in peace, knowing you truly gave everything, with no regrets. True happiness begins with 3 roots: gratitude, humility, and diligence. Inamori Kazuo believed that real happiness does not come from status, wealth, or fame, but from nurturing these 3 inner foundations. First, gratitude. Gratitude is not only for the easy days when life goes our way, it is needed even more in hardship, when we stumble, when every door seems to close before us. If we see difficulties as enemies, all we gain is bitterness. But if we view them as lessons, as opportunities to be refined and to grow, then even in pain, we can still discover meaning. At times, you may realize, adversity itself is a disguised gift, forcing us to dig deeper and find strength we never knew we had. Only when we are grateful even for the unwanted does the heart truly open, bringing the peace we need to keep moving forward. Second, humility. Inamori called humility life's protective charm. Success can easily breed arrogance, and praise can quickly lead us astray. A person may stand at the peak, but without humility, the fall can be faster than imagined. Humility does not make us smaller, it makes us larger. Large enough to keep learning, to keep listening, to recognize the value in others. In a world where everyone wants to prove themselves, humility sets us apart. It keeps the heart clear, reminding us what we are really living for. And finally, diligence. Perhaps the most familiar of the three, but also the hardest to sustain. Many long for a meaningful life, yet lack the patience to take steady steps each day. Dreams soar high, but habits falter halfway. Inamori was different. He lived each day with steady effort, not to get rich quickly, but to move closer, little by little, to a better version of himself. Diligence transforms heart into action, ideals into results, and an ordinary life into one worth remembering. If you think about it, none of these foundations are new. Gratitude, we've heard it. Humility, everyone mentions it. Diligence, it's always spoken of. The difference with Inamori was that he lived them. Every day, in every decision, in every action. He didn't treat them as virtues to display, but as the very breath that sustained a life of depth. And perhaps this is the answer to the quiet pain many of us carry. The fear of living a life full on the outside, yet hollow within. Wealth can buy comfort, but not peace. Fame can bring admiration, but not meaning. Only with gratitude to keep the heart tender, humility to keep the soul grounded, and diligence to keep ideals alive, can we live a life that, when we look back, allows us to smile in peace. A fulfilling life is not built on sudden grand achievements, but on the small seeds we plant each day: gratitude, humility, and diligence. In time, those seeds grow into a forest of meaning within us. Everything in life begins with the heart, and in the end, it also returns to the heart. Every person radiates an invisible magnetic field, an energy that quietly shapes their destiny. This is not mysticism, but a natural law. Whatever you think, whatever you nurture in your mind, life will reflect it back to you. Inamori once wrote, "All the misfortunes in life have no cause outside ourselves. They all arise from the heart." When the mind is consumed with lack or resentment, life becomes a mirror reflecting exactly what we have sown. Each negative thought is like a seed dropped onto barren soil. The more you water it, the more it spreads, until your entire garden turns gray. But the opposite is just as true. If we plant gratitude and hope within, we begin to see sprouts of joy and peace. A single change in thought can redirect the entire current of life. A smile, a belief, a kind thought, though small, has the power to spread, like a candle lighting up a dark room, enough to guide your steps forward. Inamori's own childhood is proof of this truth. Afflicted with tuberculosis, he once lived under the shadow of death. Then, after reading a book that said, "In every person lies a magnet that attracts whatever they think about," he was awakened. Instead of fear, he began to shift his mind toward hope, focusing on study. Miraculously, his illness gradually subsided. His health returned, and he went on to pass his exams, opening a new chapter of life. This shows us something profound. We cannot choose every circumstance, but we can always choose the field of energy we emit. The more fear you hold, the more you attract what you fear. But if you resolutely nurture a clear and luminous heart, you invite peace and opportunity into your life. And here lies the paradox many of us face. We may work hard, achieve wealth and status, yet if the mind remains restless, complaining, trapped in comparison, then the inner field will drag us down, locking us into an endless loop of emptiness. The greatest tragedy is not failing to succeed, but having everything, while the heart remains dark, and peace is nowhere to be found. This is why Inamori was often called the man who carried the sun. Not because life always favored him, but because he chose to nurture a radiant field of energy, even in the midst of crisis. His smile, his optimism, were proof that when you keep light within, the world will reflect it back to you. Now think about your own life. How many times have you let your mind drown in anxiety, anger, or resentment? And how many times have you noticed that the more you feared something, the more it came to pass? The answer is simple. It was the field you unconsciously emitted. So, if we truly want a meaningful life, it is not enough to act outwardly. We must first adjust the energy within. When the heart holds peace, even in the storm, you will walk steadily. When the heart holds light, even the longest path becomes a meaningful journey. In the end, Inamori reminds us, everything in life begins with the heart and ends with the heart. A clear heart creates a radiant field, and that field will shape the destiny of your entire life. Looking back at the life of Inamori Kazuo, from a sickly boy to a great entrepreneur, and finally a teacher who left behind a spiritual legacy, we see that everything he achieved did not come from luck or cunning, but from one single word: heart. He lived with a selfless heart, so his career was not only about his own success, but about uplifting countless others. He persevered and never gave up. So even when surrounded by adversity, he always found a new path forward. He nurtured gratitude, humility, and diligence, so his life was never consumed by arrogance or empty ambition. And he kept his inner field positive, so even through war, illness, and hardship, his entire life radiated light. Inamori proved something simple yet profound. You may lose money, lose status, even lose everything. But if you keep a clear heart, you still hold a complete life. On the other hand, you may reach every external success, but if you lose your heart, life remains hollow. That is the deepest fear many of us carry, to have everything, yet feel empty inside. So instead of asking, how can I be more successful than others? Perhaps we should ask, what is my heart radiating today? Peace or restlessness? Selflessness or selfishness? Light or darkness? Because it is the heart itself that shapes your destiny. A meaningful life is not measured by how much money you make, but by the light in your heart that you can keep alive, even in the storm. And this is Inamori's final reminder. Everything in life begins with the heart and ends with the heart. If you are still searching for a compass in life, start by listening to your own heart. Live with a little more selflessness, a little more patience, more gratitude and humility, more steady diligence each day, and above all, keep your heart clear. When you do, you no longer need to fear a meaningless life, for you will be able to smile in peace, even at the very end, knowing you have lived fully. Thank you for staying with me in today's video. If this message resonated with you, leave a small sign, a like, a comment, or a subscription so we can continue this journey together through many more books filled with depth and wisdom. Because every page, if we truly listen, can become a mirror, helping us rediscover balance, peace, and inspiration for life.